Navigating the costs of care and asset management, especially as one ages, can be complex. The topic of finances and paying for care is quite sensitive. However, for older adults and their family members, it is an important conversation to have in order to plan for the future. Hello, everyone. I'm Cheryl Musial, and welcome to My Care Advisors. In this episode, The Importance of Financial Planning for Older Adults, we are joined by Certified Senior Advisor and Certified Dementia Practitioner, Anthony Coleman. Welcome, Anthony. It's a pleasure to speak with you.
Thank you, Cheryl. I'm very happy to be here.
So, Anthony, when thinking about the cost of care and one's current financial and future financial position, what are a few important considerations, especially for older adults and caregivers?
That's a really great question, Cheryl. First and foremost, families and seniors need to document their financial position. They need to know what they bring in income every month through Social Security or pension. They need to know what's in their checking and savings account. If there's any additional assets through retirement plans like 401k or IRA, those need to be documented and noted. Do they have life insurance? Is it whole life insurance, term life insurance? Are there any annuities, stocks, bonds? Just a good overall look at what their financial position is a great place to start. And secondly, and oftentimes working with families, one person is responsible for managing the finances, whether it's the husband or the wife. And if something happens to them, the other person doesn't know what to do oftentimes. So it's important that they share with each other more about the finances, how the bills are paid, if they're doing anything online, that those login names and passwords are shared with somebody, whether it's the spouse or a child. So if something happens, somebody can step in and help the family manage those finances. So either it's a spouse or a trustworthy adult child should be informed of these figures and login information just in case. And lastly, an estate plan needs to be established, meeting with an attorney to get financial and healthcare power of attorney set up, a living will, and having conversations with your loved one to get their advance directives in place is important. So if something does happen to them and they're incapacitated, you can mind their wishes.
Anthony, those are really important considerations. Can you also share ways older adults can financially prepare for care and living expenses, especially as they age or if care needs change?
It's another great question, Cheryl. First and foremost, families need to create a budget. Not only if you're an older adult, but a good example is my wife and I a couple of years ago went through this whole process as a couple. We've got young kids. We're trying to plan for our future. And we had to go through what we bring in and what goes out every month so that we can develop a plan for the future. And you also need to stay disciplined. And this becomes even more and more important later in life because oftentimes people are then on a fixed income and they need to stay disciplined with their budget. Just in case something happens, they have money in place to help pay for care, whether it's in the home or they need to transition into senior living. Also, you need to lower your risk. So you need to move your money into safer investments. Oftentimes, you should be meeting with your financial advisor annually, or at least sometimes even more than once a year to discuss your portfolio and making sure that your money is in safer investments. And lastly, you can purchase a long-term care insurance policy. This is different than health insurance. It is used to pay for care. All long-term care insurance policies are set up a little different. You can use them to pay for care in your home, in assisted living, or a nursing home, depending on how they're set up. And the best time to purchase these policies is really any time between age 50 and 65.
Anthony, this is very important information to keep in mind. When thinking about financial planning, what are the average monthly costs for care in assisted living or memory care facility? And how do individuals actually pay for the cost?
This is a very common question that we are asked when consulting with older adults and their families. I'd like to share a statistic from Genworth This is from 2021. The average national cost for assisted living is $4,500 a month, and that can vary depending on apartment size, amenities, and care level for the individual moving into assisted living. And in our market, the average cost for memory care is $6,500 a month. A lot of times when these figures are mentioned to our clients and older adults, they pause. It's almost like a deer in the headlights look, because that's a lot of money per month to be paying for care. And they ask, well, how are we supposed to pay for this? Quite simply, the easiest way to pay for it is private pay, which is a combination of your income and your assets, or long-term care insurance if you purchased a policy. And it's important, if you did purchase long-term care insurance, to understand your policy. So many families that we've worked with have policies and they don't understand their policy at all. They bought it 15 to 20 years ago. They put it on the shelf. It gets a thick film of dust on it, and they never look at it until they need it. And then they're in panic mode because they don't know what their policy is going to cover and how it's going to help them. So people need to understand their policy. They need to understand how to activate it, what it covers, and what the elimination period is. And quite simply, how to do that is they can call the 1-800 number that's listed on the policy and start to ask questions to get a better understanding of their policy, or they can meet with the agent that sold the policy to them and ask questions of the agent to get a better understanding of what their policy looks like, how it can help them, how to activate it, so they can take full advantage of the policy that they paid into.
Anthony, when thinking about these payment options, if an individual does not have the ability to private pay or have a long-term care insurance policy, are there other ways to cover these costs?
There absolutely are. And working with families and digging into their finances and doing this exploration with them, oftentimes families don't know how they're going to pay for care with what they bring in and with what they have in assets. And oftentimes a saving grace for these families is veterans benefits. There is a benefit called the Aid and Attendance Pension Program. And this is a benefit for veterans. It offers them tax-free proceeds on a monthly basis to certain wartime veterans and their surviving spouse, as long as they have financial need. I want to share a few figures with you. A veteran may receive up to $2,050 per month for themselves, up to $1,317 per month for a surviving spouse, or up to $2,431 per month for a couple. For two veterans who are married and qualified, the benefit amount may be up to $3,253 per month.
Thank you, Anthony. Really great information, especially for our veterans. What if an individual does not have any of those financial resources that you just mentioned? Are there other ways to cover the costs?
Lastly is Medicaid. And Medicaid is a very complicated process. Medicaid is ran state by state and typically facilitated county by county, at least in Ohio. There are certain assisted living communities that have Medicaid approved apartments. Typically, a resident will need to pay privately for a certain amount of time to qualify for a Medicaid apartment at that facility. There are other facilities that you can move right into on Medicaid, but those options are usually very limited. It is usually best to move into an assisted living community when you're in a position financially where you can pay privately for 12 to 24 months. And essentially you spend down your money, you pay your dues, so to speak. And when your money does run out, you're able to stay in that assisted living on the Medicaid waiver program versus having to move out to a different facility.
So, Anthony, there seems to be quite a few options that are available to pay for care.
That's right, Cheryl. There are quite a few options that are available for older adults and families.
Can you provide tips on how family members and caregivers can start the conversation about finances to meet care and living wishes with a loved one?
Yeah, this is a very emotionally charged topic, Cheryl. I'd be glad to share a few tips with you and our listeners. First and foremost, you need to have this conversation with your loved one out of love, and you always need to remain calm and respectful to them. Timing of this conversation is very important. You need to have this conversation in a relaxed environment. You can use a direct approach. You can ask your loved one about their finances and explain to them. The better you understand where they're at, the more peace of mind you have. And keep in mind, they don't need to tell you everything at once. You can get information in bits and pieces over time. Don't make the conversation about money. Ask a question, what will your retirement be like? This will help you to determine if they have prepared or not. You can also ask them, what are your wishes? This helps you to understand where they're at, and it helps them to understand that you're concerned. You can ask your family members for advice with your own financial matters. This topic will open the door to learn more about how they've prepared. You can use stories, talk about a neighbor who fell victim to identity theft and how you want to protect your loved one so that doesn't happen to them. You can talk about current events, especially with what's going on in today's world with inflation in the stock market. You can discuss healthcare reform to get the conversation going. You can discuss what if scenarios. What happens, mom or dad, if you become incapacitated? And what are your final wishes? You can also offer to lighten their load. Hey, mom and dad, I want to set up automatic bill pay to help ease your burden. This will also allow you to get access to their online banking profile to get a better understanding of their financial position. And lastly, I would like to recommend a book, Mom and Dad, We Need to Talk by Cameron Huddleston.
Anthony, thank you so much for sharing these wonderful tips. So where can our listeners start and find other helpful resources to learn more about financial preparation and paying for care?
I think the conversation needs to start with the financial advisor. You need to meet with them and plan accordingly, especially if you have a change in condition and you need to start paying for care either in the home or in a senior living community. In addition to that, you need to meet with your tax professional. They're going to help you plan to reduce your tax liability, especially if you're moving into assisted living. The cost for assisted living is tax deductible. It's important to know that. If you're a veteran or the family member of a veteran, and this comes from experience working with so many families over the past 5 years, there's so many veterans we work with that aren't taking advantage of the benefits at all. So it's important to meet with your local Veterans Resource Center. In the state of Ohio, we have a Veterans Resource Center in each county. It's absolutely free service. You can schedule a meeting with them to see if you qualify for any benefits through the VA. And also Medicaid. And this differs from state to state. So you need to check with your local Job and Family Services office to see if you qualify for any benefits through Medicaid. And lastly, you can work with your local senior care advisor who has the industry knowledge and can help you navigate the intricacies of this challenging process.
Oh, thank you, Anthony, for joining us today and sharing why financial planning is important, especially for older adults.
It's been a pleasure to be here with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you again, Anthony, for joining us today. To view resources, show notes, and access more My Care Advisors episodes, visit mycareadvisors.com. You can also subscribe and listen to our podcast on your favorite app. I leave you with this thought from Benjamin Franklin. If you fail to plan, you are planning to fail. Choose to be inspired to live the best life every day. Thank you for listening. We are grateful to be your guide.